What is necessary for people to break the broke mindset that society has kind of trapped people in that keeps them poor?
So I think like people have two sets of resources, right, that they allocate. So they've got time and they've got money.
Yeah.
And so if you look at someone's bank statement and you look at their calendar, you know what their life is. And you can also predict where their life is going to be in X amount of years, right? And so if someone wants to change what their life is going to look like, you have to reallocate where you're investing the resources that you have. And so from a time perspective, people who are poor, in my opinion, spend a lot of time not doing stuff. And that sounds terrible to say, but like at the base level, they're distracted,
they're not doing the right stuff.
Right. Well, I would even say not doing anything.
Just distracting them.
Right.
Playing video games.
Netflix, et cetera, all that stuff, right? So there's like the basis, like they don't do anything. They're purely distracting themselves from their current state, which is hard because it's hard to confront reality. If you're like not happy, it's easier to just distract yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the level above that is you've got people who are operating, they are working every day, but they're operating in low leverage opportunities, right? So they're doing things that do not give them a lot of return on their time, right? And so it's like I could work, it doesn't matter how many hours I work at McDonald's, like it's very, very difficult to become wealthy there, right? It's just near impossible, right? Mm-hmm. Versus like you could buy a building for $10 million and then sell it to somebody else for $11 million, just get the contract and make $1 million on the exchange. Super high leverage, right? From a time perspective, which is crazy for somebody who doesn't have money to even contemplate something like that. But the only way that happened, and that required no money, is skill, right? And so like that's an example of like it didn't require money to make that money. That's skill that's required to do that. And so first is the time, right? People are not doing stuff with the time that they have, or they're doing low leverage activities with the time they have. And then they're not trying to increase their output per unit time, which means investing in their skill set. So like one of the easiest ways to gain leverage on your time, and when I say leverage, just for everybody, like leverage is the difference between inputs and outputs in a system. So, Archimedes said, if you give me a lever long enough, I can move the world. And so to the same degree, if you have enough skills, you can do anything, right? And so skills give you leverage on your time. So you get more out of each unit of time. So if I'm a master cold caller, I will get more sales and calls booked for the same unit of time than somebody who sucks at it. Same time, more output. Right?
But because they developed a skill at a masterful level.
100%.
Yeah.
And so when people are allocating their time, they're not by percentage, they're kind of like consuming their time rather than investing their time. So they're either doing nothing or they're consuming the time rather than putting time into getting higher returns on their time, which is education, right? Mm-hmm. And so education you can have from like the conceptual learnings, watching stuff like this, or the actual doing, right? And so you learn
taking
more
action,
100%.
Failing, messing up, feeling like an embarrassment in the actions. Yeah.
The first 1,000 cold calls you make, the first 1,000 cold emails you do, the first 1,000 doors you knock on, the first 1,000, you'll learn more from that than you'll learn from every single book you read up to that point on the concept. You'll learn, right? And so people don't allocate nearly enough time to that in the beginning. And so I think one of the things that the formal education system did really well, that people poo-poo on it, is the idea of going into debt to gain education is something that fundamentally makes sense.
Yes, but it's got to be the right education that can make you money.
You got to get a return on it.
Yes.
That's the issue, right? You have to get a return on it because like the idea of borrowing from a future self that can make more money to pay for the thing that you're getting the skill for makes total sense. I think Elon was saying something about how Neuralink in the future, it's going to be such a competitive advantage that they could price it at whatever they want, because once you have it, you'll be so much more able than anyone who doesn't have it that you could so easily pay off the price of the thing. That's how it should work conceptually, right?
Crazy.
So education is supposed to work.
Yes.
And so this is the simplest example that I have. So a friend of mine has a 17-year-old daughter. She got a job at a bowling alley and she makes minimum wage. And he said, why don't you become a phlebotomist? And she was like, well, I don't want to spend the money. He's like, it's $500 and it's a 2-day certification. And then after you have that, you make $25 an hour. So she didn't have the money. Now she could save it to get the $500, right? Or she could take a loan for the $500 from her dad and pay it back in a week,
right?
Because she has higher earning capacity. And so it was like she could either save for 8 weeks, right, from her bowling alley to pay the $500, or she could take a loan for the $500, do the 2 days, and then pay it off in a week. So at that 1 week, she now has 7 more weeks of earning capacity. This is a micro example, right? 7 more weeks of earning capacity at her new level, and she'd be net positive on the next 7 weeks of earnings, right? And so that's just a micro example of like what skill investing does. And so that, because a lot of us talk about like, You got to get educated. You got to learn stuff. And like you learn stuff by doing it. And a lot of times you pay for that education or access to people who can teach you those skills. Because a lot of people aren't going to give it to you for free. And that makes sense. It's okay.
Right,
Like it took them time to learn the thing, and they compressed that time to give it to you. So I mean, that's why I'm if there's one thing that's my like life's mission, it's education. And so
I was telling my coaching students last night on a call that I had with them that I have multiple coaches that someone was asking about mentors. Like, how do you find mentors? How often do you stay in touch with them? And I was like, listen, when I was broke, whatever it was, 15 years ago, just getting started in this space, I was lucky enough that I had a couple local mentors in Columbus, Ohio, that kind of had pity on me, but they saw that I had this hunger, this desire. I was like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And then I came back 2 weeks later and I was like, I did it. Here's the results. Here's where I failed. And that's a fuel for mentors to be like, I gave you wisdom, you took action, you got results. I'll give you some more feedback. But if you just keep asking and you don't act, we talked about this with a mutual friend we have, it's frustrating for a mentor. They don't want to give you that time.
No.
And I told him, I go, this is why I pay mentors. You know, there's a big guy in media that has a massive business that I messaged him. I'm an acquaintance with him. I said, hey, I would love to pay you for some coaching. He said, I'll just do it for you for free for 30 minutes. Now, I want to pay him because I want to be able to do it more frequently. He said, I'll give it to you for 30 minutes because he likes me, we're friendly, but I know I can't call upon him for 30 minutes every week. So now I'll go back in 6 months and say, I took action on everything you said in that 30 minutes. Here's our results. Can we do another call? And that's kind of like what you can expect with a mentor, is that type of opportunity, unless you have a serious bond and they just want to give of their time. But investing in it, like you said, is so much more powerful in getting that speed of information, in my opinion.
Totally. The single highest return on investment thing I've ever done, and not to sound trite here, but I just like using scenarios. Like if I had taken all the money that I had spent on coaching, mentorships, courses, workshops, seminars, and put that in the S&P 500 when I, 10 years ago, right? The amount that I would have right now is inconsequential compared to what I currently have. And it's because I invested in something different. So rather than investing in the S&P 500, I invested in the S&P 500. So I took all of the excess cash that I had every single month, and rather than saying like, oh, I'm at a dollar cost average, I'm long term, I wait 4 years, whatever. I was like, I just don't make enough money. So like I could be the millionaire next door who saves every penny, doesn't go to Starbucks for my entire life, and have $2 million when I'm old, or whatever.
For the last 10 years of my life.
Right, and literally enjoy nothing during that period of time. That doesn't sound like that's not a trade I wanted to make. And so I had a belief that I know I will work hard, and if I'm given the right tools, I will be able to implement them. And so I took all my extra money, and this is kind of, a lot of people might not necessarily agree with me on this, but it worked for me. So I put all of every dollar I had, even went into debt, to get access to communities and mentors and coaching programs and masterminds.
Yes.
And those were the biggest gifts of all. And it wasn't even just the biggest gifts I got from those wasn't even the education, but it was the perspectives on reality. It was people disproving things that I thought to be true. So I was like, this is the way the world is. And they were like, that's false. And my whole paradigm shifted because I had distortions of reality. I thought reality was different than it was. And so right now for people who are poor, it's because they actually don't see reality for what it is. Because the way they see reality, they see making money to be impossible or incredibly difficult, or it's only for a certain select people, not for them, right? And it's just because they literally cannot see it. And so I'm trying to think of an example of when like you can see something that, an easier example is like kids and parents, right? Like a kid thinks the world is a certain way and the parent's like, you just haven't seen enough stuff yet. And so, as you level up in the entrepreneur space, there's also just more levels of that where other people are like, this is the perspective you need to have. And you're like, no way, that's possible. And so that's where those rooms gave me the highest ROI. The other skills, because there's so many people there that are trying to learn the same things, they already said, hey, get this program, read this book. And so they helped sift through the mountain of information that's out there because I only have one resource, which is time at that time, right? And so it's like, okay, I'll spend it, but where do I spend it? And they were like, okay, if you want to learn real estate, these are the top 3 guys. You can join this Facebook group, get into this guy's community. He has a coaching program that helps you do wholesaling. This guy's a coach that does Airbnbs. This guy does, and so it's like, which one do I choose? The answer for everybody who's curious is do them all. Because you're just like, you're not, like people are like, which one should I do? I'm like, you're not going to be poorer by learning more.
Right.
Right? And then it's not like you have a finite capacity to learn. The more you learn, the better you get at learning. Right? And then the more lines and synergies you find between different skill sets and opportunities.
The more dangerous you become.
100%.
If you just learn cold calling, but you didn't also learn, copywriting and email marketing or speaking on stage, it's the combination of multiple skills that make your earning power so much greater.
I'm literally getting goosebumps. Dude, I love it. It's the compound.
Yes.
And so I have this example where I break down Jay-Z, right? And so if you look at Jay-Z in the beginning, like he had, he probably had a natural proclivity for rhyming and beat or rhythm, whatever, right? So that was his first like kind of skill. He probably practiced that a little bit because he was into it, right? And then he started rapping, right? So that was his first level skill. And then he learned, writing lyrics. And it's like, okay, so that's another
producing,
skill. Right. And exactly. Then he learned producing. And then he learned marketing. And then he learned
performing on stages or something.
Yes. And then he learned how to sign other people to his how to start a label. And then he started and so with each of these skills, it wasn't 1 + 1, it was like 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. Right. And so like in a formal world, like the world that's not rap, like if someone's good at math, they can learn accounting or bookkeeping first, right? It's like, okay, that's a level 1 skill. And then you learn accounting. Okay, now you're making more. And then you learn how insurance works. And you're like, oh, okay, now you can start to see this person evolve. And then you learn how tax and tax efficiencies work. And you're like, oh. And then you learn how to package and sell businesses and negotiate those deals with, private equity and things like that. All of a sudden, that's a CFO. That's somebody who's making multiple $1 million a year, but it's the same basic few skills that stack on top of each other and get disproportionate returns on all the prior skills with each new additional skill.
Yes.
And so the idea is not, like people ask the wrong question when they're like, which course should I buy? Which program should I do?
It's
do
yes.
them all.
It's yes.
Do them all.
Yes to all, yeah.
Yeah, you want, like, because each one of them you will learn things. And there's going to be either different ways that someone's teaching, they'll have different communities, they'll have different beliefs, you'll learn from all of them.
And this is something I think, I'll hear this sometimes when people say, well, I just invested in this program, I don't know if I have the time to invest in this next course or read this book or whatever it is. And you got to think of like, I believe, I'm doing 5-6 interviews a week where I'm constantly learning.
Yeah.
Every time you come on, I learn something new. It's not like there are things that confirm what I already know, but I'm also learning new things. It's not like I've said after 10 years of doing this, I don't need to learn anymore. I don't have any more time to learn. It's so important for me to develop as a human being, and that's why I'm constantly learning. People don't need to sit down and do interviews with people all day long. They can learn in different ways. But I don't think the investment ever ends in how much you can learn.
And it compounds.
Compounds.
That's the best part.
What would you say are the 3 main skills for someone to want to have the potential of being a 6 or 7 figure earner that they need to start learning now, so 2023, they have that potential?
In my opinion, there's 3 main skills in business in general. You got to learn how to sell, you got to learn how to build, you got to learn how to lead. So you got to learn how to get people to give you money for stuff, got to have the stuff to sell them, and then you got to have people that work on your side to help deliver on those other 2. If you can do those 3 things, you're unstoppable. And if you do one of those 3 things, you can make as much, like you can still make a ton of money. But if you can do all 3, you're unbeatable.
Sell, build, like building a team, building.
So that would be on the lead side. The building is like the product and services that you have. So you have to figure out a way to deliver value to somebody.
To develop a program, a product, a service that you can package and sell.
And people are like, well, how do I do that? All you have to do, this is the perspective thing we were saying earlier. It's like, I don't know where their opportunity is, and people who are entrepreneurs see opportunity everywhere. It's like, and my biggest regret in life is that I can't live multiple lives because there's so many things I want to do. But it's because all you have to do is look for problems. You look for things that people hate. You look for inefficiencies. You just look for things that are nuisances. Like, what are things that people do every day that they hate doing? Like, and a big misnomer, I think, is that people think they need to have a new thing. You can start a cleaning business, become a billionaire. You can start a lawn care business, become a billionaire. You can start a roofing business, become a billionaire. Like, there's clear problems. Like, all you have to do is just do what everyone else is doing, learn how to sell, learn how to deliver consistently, and learn how to lead.
Yes.
If you do those 3 things, you can do just as well as everyone else and just do it better.
I was in the elevator this morning coming here, and I have this cat sitter that used to watch my cats, right? And but he mostly works in a different building that I used to live in. Now I'm in a new building. He was in the new building because he had some other dogs. He's a dog walker, right?
Yeah.
But I asked him to watch my cats one time. And he literally for 30 seconds in the elevator, I was like, hey man, good to see you. And I go, dude, how much you making now? Because I see him hustling. I see him like walking around with all these dogs. I'm like, and his prices went up over the last few years.
Yeah.
Like when I first had him watch my cats, it was like $25. Now it's like $40 for a session. I'm like, I go, dude, what are you making? Like $500-600 a day? He goes, I go, 1,000? I go, 2,000? He goes, I go, 3? He goes, around 3K a day. I go, what? Walking dogs.
Yeah.
And he goes, now it's 7 days a week. It's a grind.
Yeah.
I've got 3 employees now who are like
just walking. Yeah.
walking dogs, but he's like the go-to guy in Beverly Hills. And he's like independent. He's not with some, big dog walking company or something, but $3,000 a day walking dogs. I go, there's a need, especially in this community where people are busy, but they love their dogs and they have money to spend on their dogs.
Yeah.
And he is providing a service. It's incredible. $3,000 a day, man. It's crazy.
I love this
I'm in the wrong business. I need to be walking dogs,
I love this example because it's perfect, because everyone can understand. It's like, what's the problem that they're solving? It's like, people don't have time to walk their dogs. Whenever you're looking at any problems, time is one of the easiest ones to solve, is that people don't want to take the time to do something, right? It takes too long. You want to do it faster. Jason Fladlien said the easiest business model in the world is find what someone else is doing, do it in half the time. It's just, you can do it, and you can look at any business that exists and do that, right? And so it's like, what did he have to do? He had to learn how to sell, which means he had to get people to give him money for the dogs, which part of that's marketing, but I'm just wrapping that.
Right.
Promotion, getting people to give you money. He had to learn how to deliver, which is like, okay, what are the best routes to walk on? How do I manage 17 leashes at the same time? Like, he had to figure all that stuff out, right? And then you had to learn how to lead. So he has 2 employees or 3 employees.
Now he's got employees, but before he was like exhausted. But now he's figuring out how to build and lead.
And what'll happen is he'll stop walking dogs, and then he'll have
team. He'll be managing it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so it's like that's such a perfect microcosm of the 3 skills being put to use.
No, it's taken him years to do it. It didn't happen overnight. He had to build his brand. He had to, show that he could deliver the value of the product consistently and all these different things. He had to be communicating and be reliable, all these things. And he was like, I'm doing it 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So he has no life, right? So it's like an extreme, but it's possible. And so the 3 skills I heard you say is sell, build, and lead. You can never get enough training on how to lead yourself and how to lead others, because there's so much of a world inside of each one of us that has to learn how to overcome insecurities, fears, traumas, triggers that will make us poor leaders of ourselves and of others, so that people respect and trust us. So leading skills is probably the hardest.
And it's also the one that's almost a meta skill in that it actually can layer on top of the other 2. So if you think about it like as a hypothetical example, imagine I know how to recruit and lead people. And I don't know anything about marketing, I don't know anything about sales, I don't know anything about delivery, but I have a vision for what I want to accomplish, a problem that I want to solve that's meaningful to me, and I think it'll be meaningful to other people. I can compel people, I can persuade them and influence them to want to work and help me solve this huge problem together, right? And so you don't even, like, real talk, you don't even have to know how to sell and how to market. You don't have to know how to build a product, build a service team, because if you can lead, you can get all those other people to do that.
And leading is also selling, in a sense. If you're
100%.
If you're a leader, your energy is an enrolling energy. Your way of being, how you show up, how you communicate, is selling you and your vision.
Yeah.
You don't need to know how to sell a product and get on stage and say, buy my stuff. But you need to be able to enroll people into a vision that they are in alignment with. And I think that is one of the hardest skills, because people don't have the belief in themselves. A lot of people don't believe in themselves. They don't love themselves enough to be enrolling, in my opinion. And so they discount, and that doubt, people can feel that energy in that doubt.
You have to be certain, not confident. You know what I mean? I think and so it's easy to say what we just said about the whole leading thing. And like, as much as everyone's like, well, I'll just jump straight to leading. Man. I feel like there's some sort of like, and this is me, I could be speaking a limiting belief of my own, disclaimer, right? But it is my belief that there's a certain amount of like spiritual strength that you gain from having done stuff, right?
Developing skills.
Right, developing the skills. Because
you build confidence with these skills.
Yeah, because you have evidence.
Results.
Yeah, and so people, you can enroll someone, you can subscribe someone to your vision, and because the first question someone's going to always ask is, why should I listen to you, or why should I follow you specifically, right? And unless you have a solid answer, that's not you being crazy, right? Being like, I have done these things, they give me evidence that I can move the goalpost further than what we have done before because of what I have done behind me, right? Because of the path I've already walked. And so I think like learning how to sell, learning how to build are the first 2 skills, and then leading, you learn consistently along the way for the rest of your life.
What would you say are the most important habits someone can develop for themselves on a daily basis to support their opportunity